Times.
Okay, good. All right, for a second.
I brought my own napkin. Yeah.
No, careful, don't cross. All right. One more thing.
It looks good.
Beautiful. All right, Sarai Tulim, everybody. Good afternoon. All right. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Welcome to
Rabbi.
those here in our Lifelong Learning Center, and welcome also to those who are joining us on the live stream, the Zoom, I guess. This is a Zoom. The Zoom today too. And I want to thank everybody for for being here today and for changing. I just want to say for the people in the room, because the microphone, we have a cord going from the TV onto the table. We put a chair right there to ID that, but please be careful if you're walking this way. I don't want anyone to trip on the cord that's there. I think we'll need Rabbi Wexler.
Chairs.
Okay, great, wonderful, thank you. So yeah, there are a couple by Michael there too, and there'll be a few more that we're gonna bring in here, and that one's the don't trip chair. So we've all, of course, that was close, Sharon, that was close. So we where to begin? So we all of our hearts and minds, of course, have been on Israel the last week plus, and we are in the process, as we have been over the last week or so, thinking about and working on how we can, try to help raise tzedakah, awareness, bring our community together, and also, educate ourselves and be able to speak to people in Israel to learn more about what's happening, learn more about what people are facing on the ground, and how we can help. So our Lunch to Learn series, which is supposed to look at challenging passages in the Torah, instead is looking at a very difficult passage in life right now, which is what's happening in Israel, and that'll be our focus. And we're in the process of putting together more sessions and opportunities for that will be like this, both in person here and on Zoom. It's obviously zooming in folks from Israel, and they're also going to be recorded and posted on the section of our TBS website we've created and been circulating about different resources to help people in Israel. So today, I'm grateful to have with us my friend Betsalel Steinhart. Betsalel was actually supposed to be with us this Shabbat. Betsalel is the director of Ramah programs in Israel, I think still for now, the director of Ramah programs in Israel, and is someone who's been a tour guide on our confirmation class trips for many years. He's also a tour guide for my family trip to Israel in 2019. Betsalel was going to be coming here. I had to wait for talking to groups that they'll be taking to Israel and all of that, and was going to spend Shabbat with us. They were very much looking forward to, but of course he had to cancel his trip. But I'm at least happy that we can have Betsalel with us today over Zoom, where he can tell you a little bit about himself, about his family, about the matzav, about the situation in terms of what's happening there right now. And kind of give us a bit of an update from Israel. Then there'll be an opportunity to be in conversation with him, to ask questions, and to kind of dialogue and learn more about what's happening there. And also, I hope too, and Betsalel and I have talked about this, but that for him to know and the people of Israel to know how much love and support we're sending from here, in terms of our gathering we had last week that had 1,500 people here, another 1,100 on live stream, the tzedakah we've been trying to raise, the people we've reached out to, the family and friends that we all have in Israel too, that we're worried about, the lobbying we're doing of our government, to working with AIPAC and others to help with that too, and also dealing with some of the things happening in our own community, in our schools and elsewhere that that have kind of been ticked up by this conflict. So I hope today is one in a number of ways in which we're all thinking about Israel and thinking about how we can help and support our brothers and sisters there right now. And I want to thank Betsalel so much for being with us tonight, and turn it over to him. So Betsalel, it's good to see you. Thank you for being with us. First, how are you and your family holding up?
Well, first of all, I think it's a great question.
I first want to thank you for having me on. And I hope it's coming through clear. Most of my normal equipment for Zoom that I was using through COVID is in the office, and I haven't been there since this all began. We didn't plan when we left for Sukkot of staying home for a few weeks. So can you hear me? Is it coming through clear, Rabbi? Okay, fantastic. Before I say anything, my phone is, which is right in front of me, is updating constantly on sirens. I imagine you guys have those in front of you too, because it's the same app. Right now, the sirens going off in Tel Aviv and Rehovot, so I may well just get up and vanish. If it's the case, you know why. I will grab my phone and try and get back online from my phone. I may also vanish if my son calls, because my son is in the front lines, and if he calls, I drop everything. But there were 2 sirens here yesterday, and it's an ongoing situation, as you know. So if that happens, you'll excuse me. It's a little bit about who I am, and some of you may know me. I certainly may know some of your children. I've been connected to Ramah since 1999. I've done many a trip with TBS, the adults and the teens. And as Rabbi Pelt says, I was supposed to be with you this Shabbat. And instead of landing in DC today, my day today looked like this. I left at 6 a.m. to go to the airport to pick up packages that were coming in for soldiers from someone who donated. I went in and gave out 2 of those. Then I went over to volunteer tzitzit making, because thousands of irreligious soldiers have suddenly decided, which is very, very, makes so much sense, that they want tzitzit. They don't want to be without that when this happens. I remember that happening clearly in 2006. So we did that. Then I went over to drop off another package, went to volunteer packing boxes, went to a shiva house, and now I'm here. So it's a very different day than being in DC. And this is the new normal, as they say right now. So I was going to come to TBS, to Temple Beth Shalom, much more because, I mean, you guys are much more than just a synagogue. You know, Rabbi Peltz, Rabbi Wexler, Cantor Cohen, Jared, Alex, Rachel, the list goes on of people who I really feel are way more than just clients. You guys are friends, and it was going to be something that I would have enjoyed. And instead, we are this, one of the long list of difficult things that's going on. So I want to start off with Rabbi Pelt said I should do a short intro, and I don't have a script. I have a couple of things I wanted to say. I haven't had time to write a script, so you'll excuse me. But I did in my mind say, when I ran something similar to this yesterday, that yesterday was Chodesh, was Rosh Chodesh, Chodesh Tov. Rosh Chodesh, which is there to allow us to reflect on what happened last month, is certainly a time for us to reflect on these crazy events that happened. And for me personally, yes, there was also the 79th Yortzeit, the anniversary of my great-grandparents being murdered at Auschwitz. So Rosh Chodesh Cheshvan was always very meaningful for me. And I say this because I think there's a very well-known connection, but I want to add something to that later between the Shoah and what has gone on over the last week and a half. It's hard to even fathom how long it's been. And I will get to this. So let's start off with the fact that it's very real here. It's very personal to everybody. That concept of 1 degree of separation it's much less than that. Everybody knows many people who are involved, who were killed, who were captured. It's everyone, everywhere. In my son, my 20-year-old son is right now on the front lines. Of course, I'm worried about him like everybody else, and several other family members. And the annoying part of this, and Rabbi, you're going to smile at this, is they just won't take me right now. I'm too old, no matter what I've done. Every time I think I'm getting through to someone for them to enlist me, I'm just too old. They won't take me. So I haven't given up, but right now I'm home. And as my former officer said to me, he said to me, just calm down. We are last generation. We are not there to fight, but there's so much more we can do, and we are. But this concept this week, and I don't need to tell you how shocking it was. It's been shocking for you. These past 10 days or so, I don't know how many days it's been, it really changed everything. And it's hard to believe that maybe you remember the headlines of Yom Kippur 3 weeks ago or so, when the headline was a scene in Tel Aviv of Jews fighting against Jews because a separation mechitza was being put up. I honestly don't even remember what the fight was about. I just remember it being the headlines that should we daven with the mechitza or not? It seems so trivial right now. And I'm reminded of something that I learned a long, long time ago, that is that God has no patience for Jews fighting with each other. And, you know, that's what I feel right now. And I'm not going to go into the facts, which you can Google, and I assume you already have, and you know them just as well as I do. not going to give you numbers and stats. And I really feel that Jewish history and Jewish legacy and these events are an integral part of that. We're going to be teaching this for the next decades. So connecting to this is never about dry facts, dry Googleable facts. It's about feelings. It's about how we connect to it. And I also don't have answers. The critical one being what's going to happen and why did they happen, because they don't exist yet. And I'm not going to try and express the sheer brutality behind it, because it's just mind-numbing. I'm sure, like many of you, I can't see any more pictures. I can't see any more videos of what happened, of what they did. It's just too hurtful. I'll say a few things about what happened to me personally, and it's the same story as everybody. Simchat Torah. I got up early. I generally am an early riser. I was having coffee in my sukkah, which is my Pesach. Obviously, I haven't taken it down yet. It was 6:30 in the morning, and suddenly I started hearing non-ending booms and sirens and booms and sirens. It was regular, but it wasn't regular. It was too many to be regular. And this went on for 45 minutes. I went to the synagogue, and when I got there, I spoke to a few of the people there, and I said, listen, in my experience, it seems like a little bit more than normal. At that point, we thought it was only rockets. That's what we assumed. And I went to the mamad, the bomb shelters in the synagogue, and I cleared all the tables out because they'd been pushed there because of all the dancing that was going to happen that day, and made sure there was enough room. And then we went back to regular davening. At some point during the Hakafot, my son, who's on active duty, was dancing with me. I kept telling him, you want to go home and get your phone just in case. He's like, oh, what are you talking about? You don't need your phone. And eventually 2 soldiers from his unit came to the synagogue. They knew where we were. They took him. I ran home in order to help him pack in about 5 minutes, gave him a quick bracha, and I haven't seen him since. I managed to get to go down and see him on his base on Friday. So it's a separate issue. It was a beautiful moment. I got to see him, but I blessed him and sent him off, and others, it was the same story. And we finished the tefillah quickly, not knowing what was going on. And really, the enormity that only hit us after Simchat Torah, when we realized that the actual incident wasn't the rockets. It was obviously much, much more than that. Since then, it's just been a blur of nonstop action. Because we are reeling, we are mourning. We're trying to take it all in. The huge numbers of unidentified bodies, it just blows your mind, because it takes a while to get a positive ID on bodies. You can't just decide it's yours because you think it is. Especially children who don't have necessarily Teudat Zehut, and therefore it's hard to identify who they are, and especially those whose features are not discernible anymore. But there are more and more funerals all the time, more and more shiva houses. And I feel that in normal times, when someone dies in a tragic way, that brings everyone together, but it also gets all the attention of the entire country. Like when the D family was murdered on Pesach, maybe you remember this. So that caught the imagination. The whole nation was there, and there have been so many other tragic incidents, and each took the entire nation. But there's too many going on. Each one is just one that demands and is clamoring for everyone's attention and everybody's focus, and there's just not enough. There's not enough national grief to focus on everyone what they deserve, and you just can't focus on every story. And as well as that, we have a war to fight, and obviously who knows how long it's going to last. Will Hezbollah enter the war? These are very difficult and different questions, and I don't know if I have the answers. I want to talk about a couple of things and then I'll open it for questions, and we'll see where this takes us, because I really don't have any specific goal I want to get to. Perhaps the most difficult thing to understand and comprehend and internalize is the captives, those 200 or so, and the word "or so" is what kills me, because we don't know the exact number yet, but approximately 200 people who have been captured, and it is going to be an extremely difficult time until they are returned, because it's just so palpable, so real, so hurtful. It's just the nightmare situation. So, I mean, I know personally one of the people who's been captured. He was a madrich for one of our programs. His mother worked at Ramah and works at Ramah. His name's Hirsch Goldberg, Poland. Maybe you've heard of his story. I don't know if you have. One of hundreds, but he happens to be an American citizen, therefore his story is getting out a little bit more. Maybe you've seen the Bring Hirsch Home hashtag, I don't know. But it's just one of so many, and it's so hurtful and so difficult because there's just no way to know what to do. Like when we gave 1,027 soldiers for Gilad Shalit, some of those terrorists were the ones who did this. So there's just no way to know what is the best way to do because you can't leave them to rot there, but yet what price do you pay? So on behalf of all Israelis, I will say something that I really feel. I feel that, yeah, we are shocked and we are tired and we are drained and we are heartbroken. And we are very nervous about what's going to happen. And we're trying to see the light and it's very, very difficult. Yet we are strong and we are determined. We are angry and we are motivated. We're willing to do anything it takes. And critically, we are incredibly united, like a time I don't remember ever being. And we are very, very passionate about what's going on. And we all want to do and to help, to be a part, not to sit helplessly and wait. Yeah, these may be historically bad times. And as I said to someone, one of my kids, was, I really don't think there are many Jews alive today. Obviously taking away those who were alive during the Shoah. But for 95% of Jews or more living today, these are the saddest times you've ever been through. And hopefully the saddest you will ever live through in the rest of your life. And we will be digesting this for a century at least. We'll point fingers and leaders will be replaced and we'll teach about this failure that in Yirtzeh Hashem ended in what I am convinced will eventually be a victory, even though I don't know the price. And there are points of light, there are sparks of hope. But as I really think it's a bit like a raging fire, flicking water with your fingertips. There are things that are bringing people happiness, like certainly what people are doing from your end, like the rally that you did, the 1,500 people plus 1,100. This brings us a lot of hope and a lot of smiles. There's no question about it. And I'll thank you for doing that, for the clergy, for you people to coming, for the entire community coming around. But what you're doing, what you're posting, your support, your concern about us, posting pictures, writing to your politicians, having these rallies and prayer services, it does help more than you can possibly know. And when the tide of sympathy starts turning, maybe it already has, inevitably will, we need this to continue because this is going to take a long, long time. And so Chesed here is really through the roof. It's unreal. I've never seen anything like it. From around the Jewish world, from within Jewish centers here, it's incredible to witness. And it's been countless initiatives of people donating everything, both their time and what they have and money. And there's just so many things that you can give, and it's unbelievable. Army equipment and food, toiletries, diapers, mother's milk, breast milk, blankets, toys, you name it, it's there to be given. The lines for giving blood are going around the block. People have been waiting 8 to 10 hours to give blood. I myself waited 8 hours to give blood because that's what we're doing. The masses of reservists who are enlisting. It's unbelievable. 150% of the people showed up, much more than people who they consider would come have come. There's too many soldiers right now down south. And I can go on for a while, but this is things that do give us hope. Even politically, we have a somewhat unity government in these times. But it's tough. The effect on our kids, the effect on my kids. Back to Zooms because there's sirens, you can't go to school. It's reminiscent of COVID, just in a much, much worse way. And before I open this to questions, and then I have a few things I want to finish up at the end, but I think it's very much about the questions. I do want to return to a point that I did start with, and that's the connection to the Shoah. Because so many have said the words, I'm sure you've heard them, that October the 7th was the worst day number-wise for Jews since the Shoah. Making the connections between the animalistic, bloodthirsty enjoyment that the murderers have had with what they did to us is definitely a connection, and never again is now, and all of these you've probably heard, and they're right. But I think it's important to make that incredibly important difference that back then we did not have the ability to defend ourselves, and now we do. Now we are able to gather together and take up weapons and take up arms and wreak havoc to the murderers and end this, and it's going to happen. There's no doubt in my mind. So I've rambled on for quite a bit, and I do want to give time for questions. So, Rabbi, I'll open this up for whatever anybody wants to ask me.
Thank you, Betsalel, for sharing this and for being here with us today. want to open it up. What we'll do is for people in the room here, you can do it the old-fashioned way, raise your hand. For those in the live stream or the Zoom, if you want to raise your hand virtually, that'd be great. I'll be trying to look through too if anyone, seems like no one has their camera on, so I think we're okay. But if you want to do the virtual raise hand also for a question, we'll call on you too. So, and I'll say for those in the room, the microphone is right here for Betsalel to hear us. So if you'd like to speak, either speak loudly or I can speak for you. Want to come close to this, so you can do that too. So there's a question for Betsalel. Comment, anything, Alvin?
First of all, thank you for your presentation. I think the tide of sympathy, while it's still there, is already turning here in this country. Letters to the editors, people are counter-protesting. It's all over already in terms of the sympathy only for Israel. And that's going to get worse and worse. If, God forbid, there's going to be massive deaths in Gaza, we know that's going to turn the tide against Israel and America's support of Israel. What do we do to prevent that from becoming a catastrophe of its own sense? Israel in the past has not been the best with the propaganda machine. How is Israel going to address that better this time, for example?
That's a great question. And you're absolutely right. There's no question it's going to happen because Israel is going to go in some sort of ground offensive. It absolutely will happen. And then the tide of sympathy will continue to turn against us. I think a few points on this. Number one, I don't think it's going to be as against us as before, because the concept of that it did start with a abnormal, bloodthirsty pogrom even, is something that will still keep a certain percentage of the world on our side. We have a right to defend ourselves, and that is one point in our favor, but it will certainly turn against us. And the bottom line is that, unfortunately, the leadership here has not shown its ability to counter that yet. And the way I feel is that from the point of view of Israelis, it's coming from the grassroots, this idea of we can and continue to defend. And therefore, from the United States, I think it has to also come from the grassroots, from the synagogues, from the leaders' institutions, is to continue to battle that for us. Because we will inevitably at some point look like the bad guys. And the ways to do it is to continue to support us, continue to push for everything you can do from your side. But in all honesty, I don't think there's a good answer to how to stop that, how to stop it becoming anti-Israel even more than it already is. So while it's a great question, I don't know if there is a good answer. It's just something, and I mean, from Israel's point of view, red lines have been not only crossed but completely smashed. So it doesn't really matter to us at this point if we look bad. Like, we need to get rid of Hamas. We need to do something decisive to make sure this is not going to happen again in 5 years, then again in 10 years. That's going to happen. Whether we look the bad guys or not, it's kind of not really as important to Israel at this point. Obviously it is important. So it's not going to stop us.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I answered your question, but
well, and I'll just add to that. I do think my observations on this and in our own community is you've kind of had people are going to protest Israel, are going to protest Israel. They've taken their usual sides. It's not, I think so different from what you normally see. I think the difference that you've seen is one, with the exception of some fringes, pretty much up and down the political leadership, national, local, has been very strong on this. And you can see it in Europe too, and other places that also are not always, that it can be very critical of Israel. I think you're being less so. I do think there's a big role for us to play in all this, and that's our relationship with AIPAC to keep talking to our representatives and making our government known how important it is. And I'll say too, in our own community, there's a lot of work going on, and I've been involved in it this past week with the JCRC and the ADL, working with our school districts, working with local government. I'm going to be at the school board meeting tonight for Cherry Hill too, and really trying to, you're not going to be able to convince everybody here to jump on our side no matter what you're going to say. But what you can do is just keep making the case and making our voices heard. And there's a lot of power in that. And there's a lot of that has been happening. And I think one of our challenges is to maintain that, right? Like not to, lose focus, because it's not, only is it going to get more complicated, but we know humans have an amazing capacity to like settle back into a new reality. And, as this goes on, as far away as it is, as close as we feel to it now, we know that our attention can be distracted. And I think one of our challenges is to make sure we stay focused and keep that intensity on the things we can do from here to help Israel.
I'll just add to that Baruch Hashem, we have people like you, Rabbi, on the other side of the ocean. And there are many others like you who are saying the same things, and it's uplifting. And thank you.
Thank you. Charles.
I have two unanswerable questions for you. That I think that's on all our minds is one, how will the ground invasion of Gaza be different from previous attempts to dampen the missile attacks that have been continual for years? At the last time there was a large-scale incursion by Israel into Gaza, it didn't go that well. And I don't see how it's going to be different this time. And the second big question is already been aired by Biden. What will you do afterward? You can't stay and you can't go.
So these are great questions, and I'll answer the first one first. There has not yet been a grand invasion on that scale. It just hasn't. What happened in 2014 and happened in 2011 was very, very minimal. It did not go well, as you said. It did not go well because it was very small. We are massively, massively larger than Hamas. It's not even close. They have a system of tunnels under there, which we have maps of. We know where they are. And up till now, we did not want to get rid of them. The government's policy, and I think wrongly, but that's my opinion, was to better the devil you know than the devil you don't know. I think the devil you don't know right now is better than the devil you know. I think I'm not the only one. In other words, right now it's time to go in with masses of force to get rid of them. And that will be difficult. There will be casualties, hopefully. And this is the reason why it's taken 10 days. We haven't gone in yet. The army, we have to trust that they know what they're doing. And they have plans to make it better, to make it work, to make it not a disaster, to make the casualties be of a very low scale, to make us be able to win this with as few casualties as possible, as well as without taking innocents on their side, which is definitely not a Jewish value. But the bottom line is we have to go in with full force. And who will replace them? Absolutely, we're not going to stay in there. We have no intention of staying in there. I don't think anybody wants to. But to replace it with a different leadership. So that's very difficult to decide how we do that. And we want to believe that the average Palestinian there, despite the atmosphere of hate, just wants to live their lives, doesn't necessarily want to cross over the border and kill and rape and murder. And therefore, the leadership would hopefully be one that we can help set up. That is less militant and much more an entity that can set up a neighboring state. That's the idea. But it's obviously not something we really know. So yes, these are unanswerable questions, but I don't see it as impossible. I see that as a possibility.
Thank you. Again, if there's anyone who's on the Zoom who has a question, virtually raise your hand or wave at me. Anyone else here or virtually? Questions for Betsalel? Comments? Yeah, Jerry.
This is probably a question that also can't be answered, but when the ground forces go into Gaza, is there a problem identifying who the Palestinians are and who Hamas is? Do you find that they hide themselves amongst the people? And is that a major problem for the IDF?
I mean, absolutely, it's one of those problems. Who exactly is the enemy? The general rule of thumb is anybody who is attacking us, pointing guns at us. Hopefully the innocents will, who, yes, Hamas are hiding behind, and they have their bomb shelters underneath hospitals and underneath schools. But hopefully when we start flushing them out, we can realize who's firing against us and not kill innocents. But I imagine, and this is now going back to when I was a soldier, in that situation, your finger is very, very light on the trigger. Like you basically are easily able to shoot at anything that moves, and it's understandable even if it isn't correct. So it's a big challenge of knowing when not to fire at innocents and when to fire at those who are potentially the enemy, who are the enemy. But it's certainly not easy. And again, I hope there are commanders there who know what they're doing. And I think this is going to take time because we're not going to rush through. We'll be doing this slowly to make sure that we don't either kill innocents or even worse, get killed ourselves. So it might take time. There are tunnels there that we may not know of. There are hiding places, and it's going to take a while. Sad it may be, but it is going to be. I think this is not a matter of weeks; it's a matter of months, maybe more. Hopefully, not much more.
Thank you. Yeah, Debbie.
Have there been any residents of Gaza who have ever spoken out or aligned themselves just to say what life was like under Hamas during all these years? Many Americans think that they were voted in, or that, you know, they belong there, and that's not true. And I don't know if people understand how they got to power.
Well, I mean, I can explain that, and maybe some people know about it, but when Israel left the Gaza Strip in 2005, it was for a year and a half under the Palestinian Authority, Hamas, which is a lot more militant, a lot more radical, basically took over in a coup and kicked them out to the West Bank. And they took over since then. They are very ruthless. You don't speak out against them if you value your life. You just wouldn't. Whether everybody there agrees with them, you can only guess, because you just don't do that. You wouldn't speak out. It's very, very dangerous to speak out against a regime like that, and we know this from other areas. So, are there people who speak out in the Palestinian world? Absolutely. Are there ones who are in the Gaza Strip who are against it? We just don't know. It's 2 million people there. I can't imagine for a second that all 2 million of these people are evil people. It just doesn't fathom by me. If that's the case, then it isn't the case. It can't be that 2 million people are evil. But there are thousands. There are thousands of people who are willing to continue that fight, and that's the sad reality of it. Rabbi, feel free to add anything that I'm not saying that you want. This is absolutely not a monologue.
Yeah, no, I will. Gary's got a question.
There's been concern, of course, that Hezbollah and some of the other foreign countries might get involved. Is there concern about that? And we, of course, seen, the images of the U.S. aircraft carriers, moving to the area. I mean, is there potential for the U.S. to get involved with their own forces? And do we really want that? Because, once we get involved in that war, could, the opinion change too?
Oh, 100%. I'd say the major concern right now is would Hezbollah/Iran, Syria get involved? We are really hoping that they won't. And when the ground invasion occurs, that they will just keep to themselves. And I think there's an awareness on that side that if they do that, the US will get involved. And those carriers are not just there just to sail by, but they're there for a reason. And that will spark a larger conflict, and hopefully they will understand it is not in their interest to do that. But it's absolutely a major concern. We don't need that extra front right now. We have our hands full. But I mean, I'll say this, like, of my family members who've been enlisted, 3 of them right now are all the way up on the border in Lebanon. They're reserve units waiting for whatever might happen on the north, because we have to be ready for that. It Chas v'shalom won't happen, but Hezbollah has 120,000 rockets, some say more, which can be aimed at anywhere in Israel, as well as, a very well-trained army that could easily cause a lot of problems. And we're not even talking about Syria and Iran, which are actual countries. If US gets involved, as you said, it's a much bigger conflict, and therefore something that we don't want to hear about. We don't want to know about. But who knows? I think I speak on behalf of all Israelis when I say that we trust that the army is ready for anything that That's a tall tale. That's a high endeavor there.
Tala, could you also say something too about Israeli Arabs and the West Bank? And in May of 2021, there were the riots in mixed towns, and it seems like Hamas called on them for an uprising too at the beginning, and things seem like they've been quiet. But how's that look to you internally?
So I think it does go back to something that I think personally, I think Hamas was too successful for its own good. I think it didn't realize how much we weren't aware, and it didn't realize it would be able to kill 1,350 people and capture 200, sparking this war. And I didn't realize how much the public opinion within Israel would be against them. And I'm talking about the 23% of Arabs who are here. Because the Arabs who are here, they have their own issues, and they are legitimate issues against what Israel is doing. And those don't include the kind of barbarity that went on down there. The general feeling among the Israeli Arabs, and I'm very much generalizing, but is that this was way, way too far. It's legitimate to want to get a state. It's legitimate to protest, and to protest even in semi-violent ways, but this is beyond that line. So at the moment, it's been relatively quiet in the West Bank. As I said, I think those are the reasons why, because they don't agree with what happened. They agree that there's a different way of doing this. Will that continue if there's a massive ground invasion that happens, or anything more than that? Time will tell. I have a feeling that as the shock passes, just like we said about going on back home with you, I think you may find more and more of them wanting to get involved against what Israel is doing against them. So yeah, you might see that unfortunately crop up as well.
We'll go Alan, and I'll go around to Bruce.
All right, so the one thing we haven't spoken about so far today are the hostages. And, this is the first time really that there've been a large scale taking of hostages. And in the past, Israel has been willing to negotiate for the release of individual hostages. Now we're talking about something on a much grander scale. I think we all basically agree that it's unlikely that Israel is going to let Hamas take a walk as a price to release the hostage. And I guess the question is, do you think that the Israeli public recognizes or considers the possibility that the hostages may be a price that has to be paid? And what would that do to internally in Israel?
Yeah, what you're saying is the most difficult question. I think there's no question about it. And you expressed it very well. It's an insolvable problem, because if you do release X amount of prisoners for these 200 people, whatever they demand, you're rewarding them and saying that you did a good thing, and you're persuading them that they should do it again. Like each time we've released large numbers for 1 or 2 people, that shows them that's a good way to do it. So yes, we have the moral high ground that we are willing to do anything it takes to get your soldiers back. And it is a wonderful moral ideal, that the price we've been paying has just been too much. I think there are some in Israel who are on the one hand saying these hostages, they may well be as good as dead. We may not be able to pay that price because we got to get rid of Hamas. And some are saying, no, that is much higher than anything. We have to get them free, whatever price it takes, we have to release. And there's an argument going on within Israel, and nobody's right and nobody's wrong. We are hoping that somehow the international community, and again, because it wasn't just one person captured, which wouldn't have captured the imagination of the world. It was hundreds, and the way they were treated in the movies they've been releasing, public opinion on that specific issue, I don't think is going to change. Even if the world is against Israel for what we're doing in a month or so, the idea that these hostages need to be released, if they haven't been by then, we'll keep coming back to that. And hopefully that will be something that the world will stay on our side, because that's a humane thing. That's something that isn't going to change, so that they can be released. In my mind, what the world and what you can say is a simple math. Is right now the world is starting to say, well, Israel's turned off the water, turned off the electricity, turned off the fuel. You want fuel for 2 million people, just release 200, and there you go, you'll get that. You know, clearly Hamas, you don't care about your 2 million people if you're not willing to do that. But it's an easy argument to make, but they're not going to do that because that's their major card. That's what they wanted. So it is the most difficult of questions. I wish I had a good answer for you, but it's an argument right now going on. Every reserve unit has been come together. Every army, every place people are talking, they're talking in hush whispers about, you know, what can we do now? This is unprecedented. What do we do? Rabbi, I'd love it if you had some inspiration for me on this one, because I don't know.
No, I don't have a good answer either besides what you said. I admit that, you know, the only, you know, what I've been thinking about with, you know, with the hostages, the only thing that compares to it in scale is Entebbe, right? I mean, when the airplane was hijacked in 1976 and brought to Uganda, which of course ended up having, you know, a relatively happy ending there. I haven't seen anything written about it yet, Betsalel, but I have to, part of the irony of, you know, Yoni Netanyahu's, the Netanyahu name, the fame coming from the rescue of hostages at Entebbe, and now the Bibi Netanyahu perhaps downfall with the capture of hostage here has some sort of, I don't know what that is, but it's been kind of on my mind with all of this. And, you know, please God, you know, something like, you know, miracle or an action like that can happen again. But this, of course, with all the challenges of flying to Uganda and doing that, I think this is a lot harder in terms of what they're facing. I don't want to make a comparison to put up a false hope there. I just mean to say, I think it's the only other, it picks up pretty well. I think it's, you know, the best comparison we have, but you know, it is. I mean, it's, you know, it's in Jewish texts, you find conflicting sources on this. Like it's one of the greatest mitzvahs is to redeem captives, right? At the same time, we have a lot of historical evidence and where, you know, prominent rabbis who even Rabbi Meir Rottenberg, who was taken captive, said, don't you trade one person for me, right? Like it's not good for the Jewish community, just encourage taking more. So it's always complicated no matter what. And I think we're seeing it in the extreme with this case. Yeah, Bruce wanted to ask something.
With the failure of all the intelligence, not just Israel's, to see this attack coming, how prepared is Israel to face the possibility of Iran's threat of preemptive strike?
Another great question. One would have to hope that the plans that Israel has exist for all different scenarios. I mean, the scenario for this did exist. We just didn't realize it was going to happen. I don't have a good answer of whether Israel has plans what's going to happen if Iran or if anybody else decides to attack. But it does seem, again, this is my own feeling, that we've taken a hit and it's a big one. But right now, the last 10 days has been all about getting up from that hit and starting to process and starting to realize what we have to do and doing it without just knee-jerk reaction, lashing out, but more being a much calmer decision-making army with hopefully a wider leadership that can set goals and not just go in and hope for the best, but to do it responsibly and properly and set plans and decide what exactly is a victory and under what terms do we stop fighting. So all of these are great questions, and I'm hoping that someone in Israel has those answers. I don't.
I see two hands raised in the Zoom. So first, let's hear from Susan and then from Amy. Susan?
Yes. So first of all, I know you know this, but please know that we at TBS, and I think American Jews across the board, are very much with Israel. But what I say, and I realize that you can't do anything about this individually, I am very concerned about Israel losing the propaganda war. And while I agree with you that on some level we say, well, doesn't matter how bad we look, we have to get Hamas, I think it does matter, because we need to make sure that the government stays with us. I mean, people are fickle. They can change their opinions pretty quickly. I mean, I'd venture to say that most of my non-Jewish friends hadn't even heard of Hamas until this. They didn't know they were bad actors. It just didn't sort of, we sort of assume people know much more than they really know. And I think it's gotten better in the last day or so, but I think Israel's propaganda, for lack of a better word, wasn't also good in the beginning, which I get, it was horrible. It was catastrophic. I'm not being critical as much as saying, when people here, whether it be companies or politicians, are in big trouble, they bring in experts who know how to talk the right language, who know how to frame an issue. And all I'm saying, I guess, is that I hope Israel is doing that.
So, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, you're absolutely right. I see this less of a question, more of a very good observation.
I know.
That we absolutely have to be more on the ball with the Hasbara machine that I think has been getting better. It was definitely not very good at the beginning. I think there are voices around the world, and this does fall into your category as well. Because yes, we will end up looking bad. There's no question about it. But as we said before, there are voices out there. We need to continue to raise those voices to make sure that when Israel does continue to do what it needs to do to win this and to get to those goals we've defined as what is victory, that we don't look so bad. And even if it, as I said before, it's not the end of the world if we do look bad. But you're right. You're 100%
Look bad. That's not what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah,
one last point on this. I noticed on day like 3, the Israelis who were speaking, official spokespersons, starting referring to Hamas as Hamas ISIS in sort of one word, which I thought was great because people know what ISIS is. And I'm sure that was intentional. But those are the things that people far smarter than me, I'm hoping, are thinking about.
I agree with you. I agree 100%. Let's hope.
Thank you, Susan. Amy.
My question is more of a practical question. As you can imagine, every single Jewish organization I have ever had any kind of contact with has been soliciting me for funds. I would like to understand really where is the best place to give, or how do I judge? I mean, I don't think any of my money is going to go to waste, but is there any particular recommendations for you to offer as to how to best direct our donations?
That's a really good question. I mean, one of the things I was going to end with is that we have a Ramah Israel fund that we've so far raised somewhere in the region of, I think, $12,000, and we spent all of yesterday and the day before buying stuff, packing those, and sending them off. I was going to play a clip of soldiers shouting, huge amounts of soldiers saying, "Thank you, Ramah Israel." So I can definitely give you that link. But I'll be honest with you, there's, as you said, there's so many links, and they're all hopefully doing a good job. But that's so low down on the priority scale of being able to judge who's doing what with that. I can only vouch for what I'm involved with, and I can't vouch for anybody else. I wish I had a good answer, but there are a lot of very good people out there, and if you know someone or someone can vouch, I wouldn't just take any organization, just like sign a blank check, but it's definitely good to find out who they are, like the Ramah Israel Fund, and I'm sure the rabbi has people he can absolutely vouch for who are going to be using that money in a good way and continue to do that because we absolutely need it. Rabbi, you want to add to that?
Yeah. So we've been on that page in our website that you can get to from the front. We listed a number of tzedakot that I think are good ones to support. We'll add Ramah's one right now. We don't have that one yet. But also one of the links we put there too is the Jewish Funders Network has been both vetting and constantly updating a list of organizations. And what's nice too is they divide it up amongst international groups, local groups in Israel, political advocacy groups, different types of interests that you might want to support. They're all good, and they're all. I trust the Jewish Funders Network is saying that they're all legit too, and that's a really good resource. And I just went in again today, and I see that it's been updated already from yesterday, and they're constantly doing that. So, I see Alex. Thank you, Alex. I can always count on him, and I'll just show you briefly because I think it is worth seeing this because I know this is a big question. Let me open my chat. But we do have, on the TBS, there's Ramah too. Look at that. So on the TBS website, I'm going to share the screen here in a second, just to make sure everybody sees it, because I do think it's helpful, and we are constantly updating this too. This is right off the homepage. TBS Stands with Israel. We have these boxes at the front that you can click on and go to. So anti-Semitism and misinformation. There's some Israeli news sites and some resources from the ADL and elsewhere about tools for understanding, resources for parents for talking to their kids, political action, APAC and ADL, Tzedakah for Israel. These are, our local federation and really national federations, and some other good places too. And I'll click on the Jewish Funders Network in a minute. And also we have the video of our gathering, and also the videos from these lunch and learns are going to be up here too once we finish them and process them. But this Jewish Funders Network page, we take a look at that, you'll see it, they have, divided up this way: international, Jewish, diaspora, educational, emergency responders, etc. Israeli hospitals, just click on the hospitals, and here you have a little description and direct links. So this is also a really helpful website that is constantly being updated too, as you can read a little bit about what you're giving to and think about, what, and try to help it from that perspective too. But, I certainly hear you, Amy, and I feel that way too. There are so many good organizations and people reaching out, trying to do good things. And I think as long as you're doing it to a reputable, vetted organization, or one that a trusted friend is saying is going to support, support it. But it's a lot, and that is of course one thing that we as American Jews can do from here is give tzedakah, and I really encourage everyone to give generously and try to help.
I'll just add to that. That is a really beautiful website. I haven't seen it, but there's a wonderful organizations on that list that you just roll over. So kol hakavod lachem, seems amazing. I just put in the chat as well the Ramah Israel link if you wish to. But
We'll add that to it.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll add that to it. Good. All right. Ellen, go ahead.
Aside from Hamas, I guess, refusing to open the gate for the refugees at the border between Egypt and Gaza, what else is going on there?
In the Gaza Strip right now?
Yes, where the gate.
You mean at the Rafah crossing between Gaza and Egypt, in terms of?
What's going on the ground?
Why isn't the gate being opened? Is it
okay? So that's one question. Why? Because Egypt doesn't want. Let's be really. Egypt does not want the Palestinians in there. They don't want them. And one of the questions is, why isn't any fingers being pointed at Egypt? Egypt doesn't want them. I think they should open those gates up to innocence, but they're not going to. What's going to happen to right now? Israel has defined a specific line of, I don't know how far from the north, somewhere like 2/3 on the way up of the Gaza Strip, that you have to evacuate below that line, and if not, then you're not an innocent civilian. But Hamas is not letting people do that, so it's very tricky. What's going on right there right now? There's a lot. I imagine there's a lot of very, very scared people there, a lot of very evil people there. And hopefully the scared ones are more than the evil. And hopefully Israel, when they go in, can make sure we get rid of the evil people and spare the innocents, because that's also important to us as well. There may be a war, but war doesn't mean you just butcher everybody. It doesn't work that way. That's a great question. What's going on the ground? We don't really know.
Thank you. Phil had a question back here.
I guess my question is a little more mundane. Knowing the drain on the population with all the young people in the service, and knowing what's going on in terms of how long can the Israeli economy continue to be productive?
That's a great question, and it does bring back memories of 73. Some of you may remember Yom Kippur, but that was different in a very critical way. In Yom Kippur and in the 6-day war, there was a enlistment of everybody. They simply brought the entire army in. Israel was below 2 million residents then. Everybody was drafted. We haven't drafted everybody. We haven't. We drafted, I don't even know the numbers. I don't think anyone knows the numbers, but we're not talking about anywhere near the full force. I'm involved in so many WhatsApp groups of people who are either my age or younger than me, and those who are active services who are saying, why haven't I been drafted? And the answer is because you're being saved, because there may need to be more people. You've got to switch people around. You can't. It's not the entire country which brings the economy to a halt. It's a lot of people. The economy is still going. There are people working. There's still. It's not like Yom Kippur when everything's shut down. It isn't the case. Thank God we are approaching 8.5 million people here. So we have the ability to enlist 300,000 people and not shut the country down. It's definitely a hit. It's definitely not easy. And there's going to have to be some sort of tachlufa, some sort of switching up. And there will be. I'm sure there will be as the days turn to weeks and the weeks turn to months. But it's not the same situation purely from a numbers point of view. But it's going to be difficult for sure.
We have time for a couple more questions. I want to do a full turnaround to make sure I didn't miss anybody here. And anyone else online? Yeah, I think Gary, go ahead. And if anyone else is online, I'm going to scan that too. Go ahead.
I mean, every so often you hear people saying that the majority of the Palestinians don't really even like Hamas, and they probably don't like the PA because they're both so corrupt. Do you think it's a pipe dream that someday the Palestinians will overthrow Hamas and the PA and actually put in place a useful entity that can negotiate in good faith with Israel, or is that just a pipe dream?
That's a great question. I don't think it's a pipe dream. I think that's the dream. I think that's the reality. I don't think we're ever going to have a situation where we have the state of Palestine in Gaza, West Bank, wherever, living next to Israel, and I can go and eat hummus in Gaza with Muhammad. I don't think that's going to happen. But I do think we can reach a situation where the liberal or more liberal people in the Gaza Strip who just want to have their lives and don't want to need a constant, never-ending cycle of violence and butchery, we can get along and we can share the land, and we can. That's the dream. That's always been the dream, and I want to cling to that. I think we still can cling to that. Maybe I'm being optimistic. Maybe I'm being, what's the word here? Very much realistic. I'm being naive, but I think that is the dream that people cling to.
I'll just say not to over romanticize it, because there are plenty of challenges before the disengagement in 2005, right? But I've been down, and I know Betsalel, I'm sure, even more so perhaps others, right, or communities next to Gaza, and there used to be workers who would come and work in the fields and work on the kibbutzim, members who would come in, they'd attend each other's weddings and things like this. It wasn't as widespread as it should be, but there were some seeds of cooperation and connection between the people. And when that border, was closed, that really got cut off. And now you're dealing with 18 years, of real just sealed and rockets and everything else happening. But it certainly was not peace, and there was a lot of violence and conflict then. But there were, like in the West Bank too, there were examples of people working together and families knowing each other, and that's I think the steps that needs to be worked towards once again. And it's a long road, though. Well, I think that pretty much fills up our time. Just a couple. Betsalel, anything you wanted to add in conclusion?
Sorry. Yeah, one sec. So I do want to do two things. I was going to play a song for you. I'm simply going to put it in the chat. I'd like you to play at some point because I think it's very powerful. But I do want to have one point on my mind that is important for me to finish with. And it's something that I teach often, and I really believe in it. I think that we have to remember that Jewish history has always had ups and downs and spikes, and the downs can be very, very deep. But like this one, but really we have to remember that Gamzeya Avol, this too will pass. And we will overcome this. And Jewish history didn't start yesterday, it's not going to end tomorrow. And we are an that has come together, and we will overcome this. And Hashem Yivarech Tamo Shalom is something that is very much prevalent. I also want to say thank you for all of what you are doing. It can be tempting as well from your point of view just to get tired and just to say, I have my own life, my own challenges. You all have, every single person in this world has their own baggage, their own challenges. And that's very reasonable, very understandable. But the fact that you're able to stand with us when we need it is very much appreciated. And I want to say thank you on a personal note as well to Rabbi Peltz for all of what you're all doing, you and all your entire community. And I'm going to just put in the link here a song that has just started making the rounds in Israel that I wanted to play for you, but I think it's I'm just going to get the right link. So give me a second.
Is it Hanan Ben Ari?
Yeah, you know it.
I just sent it to Alex this morning.
Okay,
Yeah.
so if you have it with English subtitles, I won't waste my time. but definitely it's making the rounds and
I'll
therefore.
put it in. It's good. Let's we
Good,
can
good.
we can end on that.
Yeah,
Powerful.
and so Bavakasha, but Ramah, thank you, and to all of you. Alex, it's good to see your face, by the way. Very good. שיהיה לנו שקט. This should be something that should be hopefully over soon, and we are strong. We're not going away. We're not leaving this alone. This is going to happen.
No, thank you, Betsalel, for being with us. And
Thank
know that we're here for you and here for the people of Israel. And I'm not trying to be over dramatic here. We truly are, and anything that we can do to help from here, Tzedakot, etc., Chizuk, we're here to do that, and don't hesitate to reach out. And we'll be making synagogue will be making a donation to the Ramah Fund in gratitude for your time today. And Chazak v'amatz. Or actually, I heard it's B'yachad ninatzeach is the saying going around Israel right now. Together we will win is what you hear, and we'll start saying that here too, and and playing our part, to play our part with it also. So thank you. I think we'll conclude here, and Betsalel, if you need to go, it's okay. But for those who want to stay for 3 minutes, we'll play the video that Alex threw in the chat here of Hanan Ben Ari, one of the kind of very popular Israeli singers. I don't think there are English subtitles on this. I don't know, Alex, if you found that yet.
I can put in one that there are English subtitles if you want. Would you like me to do that?
Could you? That'd be great. Even better.
You
can share it more widely. But it's a very moving song that he wrote for this, with a lot of examples of strength and perseverance and resilience amongst Israelis, and one that's worth sharing and watching.
So you want to just share your screen and hit that link, Rabbi?
So I'm going to do right now.
Okay, I'm going to watch it with you. I would like to. It should be you should be able to see pictures with it.
פעם אנשים עוד כתבו לך כאן שירים במחברת, זוכר, היפהפייה נרדמת, עד מתי תהיי מדממת, לרחובות כולם אין חלון ואין סולם, אין גם דלת, או שלט, עכשיו שירי המשם, שירי המשם, שירי המשם, אישה, אך נגמר, לעולם, לעולם. הנביאים חזרו לך אחרת, מישהו נרדם במשמרת, איפה החלום, אין אמת ואין שלום, אין גם צדק, רק צדק. עכשיו, שירי המשם, שירי המשם, שירי המשם, אך נאמר, נאמר, לעולם, לעולם. לעולם לא נשבר, בשלום ובצער, במתוק ובמר, רק איתך אני אשאר. את היחידה מיוחדת, לעולם תהיי מולדת, גם על סף תהום, גם בתוך הגיהנום, את גן עדן, גן עדן. כך ימינים, פעם נכנעים לגיל, ובסלחים, נחת ירושלים, כל ספקים.
All right. Oh, a very powerful video from Fanan Ben-Ari, and thank you, Betsalel, for sharing it today and sharing everything with us today. And stay safe. We're sending our love and our prayers. We'll see you.
Thank you. Your thoughts.
Thank you. And thank you to everybody for joining us. In 2 weeks, we'll do another one. We'll let you know. We'll let you know what's going on. Yes, Ben. I'm just gonna let Ben, if you need to sign off, Betsalel, go ahead. And everyone else who joined us, thank you for coming. We're continuing to put more programming out. And thank you for being with us. All right, then. Yes, Ben.
There were 6 of us in the room here last night in Philadelphia, which was about 5,000 people.
Yeah.
We marched from City Hall to Independence Hall. And while we were marching down, most of the people on the street were on our side, thumbs up, hollering positive things, horns blowing on cars. So yeah, right now the support, and hopefully it stays that way.
Yeah.
It was pretty amazing.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you, everybody.
Thank
for being here. Thank you for everyone being online.